And I'm happy to answer any questions because we've heard from the opposition, but you haven't heard from the guy who's on the front line selling this product in a retail store.
That's why we have you here. Yes, Senator Dell.
Shadi, thanks for coming down. We spent a lot of time together talking to me about your business, but share your personal story about your addiction to nicotine and cigarettes and what this product has meant for you personally in terms of being able to quit cigarettes.
Absolutely. I started smoking young. I started smoking at the age of 17. And actually, my girlfriend's father is the one who introduced me to my first electronic cigarette at age 22. I'm age 26 right now. Ever since I picked up that first e-cigarette, I quit smoking. I haven't smoked since. It's been about 4 years of not smoking a traditional cigarette, and it's changed my life. It's given me the opportunity to be a business owner. It's given me the opportunity to employ people, to be my own boss. And not only just that, my health has improved greatly. And the fact that I've been able to wean myself off nicotine has been huge. Typically, there's a trajectory that every new vapor goes on. They start at a higher level of nicotine, and they slowly wean themselves down to their either completely nicotine-free or they're vape-free. And that's what we push on our customers, and that's what was pushed on me, and that's what I've done. So to answer your question, or to elaborate, it has saved my life, and I can attest that thousands of people, and even hundreds of people here, will agree with me on that.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Senator Bro.
Just two questions. Number one, you said that it would exempt the large manufacturers. How does this bill do that? And secondly, you say you're creating jobs. What are the wages of the jobs that you're creating?
Well, I'll answer the second question first, and then I'll tie back to the first question. I start every employee out at $10 an hour. Very few of my employees still make that. Most of them make more. I've salaried a lot of people. I have about 20 employees right now, and we're just about 18 months old from our first store. We've opened 3 stores in the last 6 months, and we are going to continue that trajectory, but this is going to stop us. To answer the first question about how are they exempt, you'll see in this bill that under 2 milliliters in a sealed package is not, they don't have to abide by these laws. And what that is big tobacco. That is the cig-alike product that R.J. Reynolds, that Altria, that the blue e-cigarette that you're familiar with, that exempts them. And they are the biggest brands in this industry. While the vape stores have started to do more and more in sales, and it's been estimated that the vape stores are selling more than those tobacco, the big tobacco brands. So they are trying to exempt them when this is in the face of public health. It just does not make sense to me. And that's why they're exempt.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear, you do understand that big tobacco, as a result of the Master Settlement Agreement, is under the authority of the federal government. They've been under control of the federal government for 8 years. Anything that goes into a cigarette or anything is under the auspices of the federal government as a result of the Master Settlement Agreement in 1997. So to say they're exempt regulated industries that we have. And for the last 8 years, the federal government has had total control over what goes in that cigarette, the amount of nicotine, and so at this point, they've not chosen to do anything. But I just wanted to make it clear, the e-cigarette is highly regulated. So I just wanted to, if you weren't aware of that, wanted to let you know how it's regulated and by whom. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for your testimony. One of the things that you said is many are already doing it. Many. You say that you're being responsible about it with child safety caps and those sorts of things in listing the ingredients. But you're saying many are doing it. That's not everyone doing it, which means that there could be some bad players out there. And if there are, then that could potentially not only be a public safety risk, but also a risk to children getting access to things that we as a parent don't want our children to have access to. So would you agree then that there is at least some concern that there could be bad players and that this legislation addresses, tries to address that as a public safety but also a child safety concern.
I absolutely agree with you. I will be the first one to tell you that there needs to be some kind of regulation in this industry. This is just not that regulation. This regulation that needs to occur in this industry needs to be partnered with the people who are in this industry. It can't be written from the outside looking in. It needs to be a cooperative effort, because while many is not enough, I 100% agree with you there, this is not going to make everyone abide by these rules. I mean, you're going to send so much commerce outside of Indiana, and what's going to stop us from me going to a website and purchasing the same product that they could have purchased in my store pre-legislation? What's going to stop them from buying that online and having it shipped to their door? Absolutely nothing. That's the problem with this legislation. It doesn't, it's not all-encompassing, and it needs to be, because many, like you said, is not enough. And this is not enough.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Evan McMahon, I believe.
Thank you, Chairman Buck and the other members of the committee for having us here today. My name is Evan McMahon. I am the owner of Liberation Vape. I'm an e-liquid maker in Indiana, and I also represent the Hoosier Vapors Council, which is the largest organization of shop owners and advocates and manufacturers in the state of Indiana. First, since we had a nice dramatic presentation there, I'd like to call your attention to this stack of papers. This is 1,673 individual letters signed by Hoosiers from around the state, from every district, every county in Indiana in the last 48 hours, urging you to reject this bill for many, many, many reasons. I'm a small business owner. I recently started my juice company. I'm a recovering smoker. I was a 2-pack-a-day habit. When I started vaping, I started at 18 milligrams of nicotine a day. I'm down to 3 milligrams per day in the last 3 months alone. My life has improved, my health has improved, as it has for every single person that I have come in contact in this business. And it's more than just a business, it's a community. And the reason why I mention that it's a community is because when you visit a vape shop in Indiana, you're greeted with a hello, something that's rare in the customer service field today, but you're greeted with a hello, and you're asked about your story. Were you a smoker? How much did you smoke? What kind of cigarettes did you smoke? We want to help you find what you need to become an X, to kick the butt, okay? You're educated about the quality of products. You can sample them in the store. You can feel the devices. I have arthritis. It's hard for me to handle some devices. I could order online and I'd actually pay about 20% less, even with the shipping. But going into a store, I can hold the product, feel it in my hand, and make sure that with my arthritic fingers, I can still use it. I can sample the product. But more than that, I'm talking to a shop owner or an employee or even the customers that hang out there and getting good quality information about the product, how to use it, how to use my device in a forum, in a community, so that I can become an ex-smoker, so that I can improve my life, so that I don't start freaking out and thinking, oh, my throat hurts. Is this because of vaping? Well, no, it's because you stopped smoking and your throat is now healing. It's not covered with black tar. You're healing. Stick it out. And as you'll find, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel great. As an e-juice manufacturer in the state of Indiana, I did not realize that I had the option of putting spice or bath salts or marijuana in my e-juice. I thought those things were already illegal. I want to thank Senator Merritt for actually championing that here in the Senate for the past 2 years. Our streets are safer without bath salts, without spice, and he was the forefront of that. So I want to thank him for that. But there's been a lot of attention placed on there being drugs put in these e-liquids. Well, it's already unlawful for me to do that. I wouldn't want to do it even if it was lawful, but it's already illegal. So why do you need to add all of this other regulation of adding casino-grade security firms to make sure that I'm not already breaking a law that's already there? And as a manufacturer, why would I want to do that? I'm pretty sure that no vendor in the state or outside the state of Indiana is going to want to carry my product if I'm putting illegal substances in it. No store is going to want to put it on their shelves. And let me tell you, we fight for shelf space in stores. I'm one manufacturer of e-juices, and I'm a small guy. I'm tiny. I'm a single employee. I hope to be huge one day, but if this bill passes, it probably won't be in Indiana. And as a lifelong Hoosier, that's disappointing to me. I called and talked to a couple security firms about, can you meet these regulations and how much will it cost me? And they said, until you provide us with schematics for your facility that you own, we can't tell you how much it will cost to provide these services. So I'm sitting here today not knowing how much I'm going to have to spend just for security. There was a question asked about co-packing in Indiana. That's, sharing a space where all the manufacturers pool their resources together and share a space with the security and everything. There's actually a section in the law that says that each licensee must own their process. We can't share. We can't co-pack according to this bill. So I can't go to anybody. There's actually a bottler here in Indianapolis who produces on this caliber and has these levels of security. He would not be able to take us on as a client. Today, every manufacturer that I have met in the state of Indiana has the nicotine milligram listed on their package. They have the volume of the bottle, and it states what's in their material. It says that it has USP propylene glycol, USP vegetable glycerin, USP nicotine flavorings, and then we actually, as an industry, encourage people to say whether or not they use artificial colorings to get that some of the bottles have a nice little blue color. We want you to list that, just so that the person knows. We also put a warning on there that it is not for minors. We also say to keep it away from children and pets. We have done this on our own. I put, even though I'm arthritic and it hurts me sometimes to try to open up a child-proof bottle, I use child-proof caps. And the reason for that is because the other caps sometimes pop off and spill. And I've had that happen in my own pocket. We use the safety seals, the tamper-proof seals, but we do this already as an industry. We've already been doing this. We've been self-regulating as an industry. The very sad thing about this and why you have over 100 shop owners outside right now, or 100 businesses represented right now, is because no one came to this industry and said, we have concerns. Would you work with us to create standards in Indiana? I would have sat in on that meeting. If I had known that there were concerns, I would have come and said, please, let's sit down and discuss this. Let's talk about standards, as opposed to, let's kill this industry, which is what this bill will do if it's passed. It will kill this industry. And you had asked, Senator, about inventory. The bill actually does say that they would not be able to carry anything that does not meet Indiana's standards. So they would only be able to buy e-juice that is manufactured in Indiana. They would only be able to retain in their stores e-juices that were manufactured in Indiana after this licensing. They would all have to meet these requirements. So the top producers in the country would not be able to sell their products in Indiana, even though they have the largest facilities. I'd also like to point out that the only person who has spoken in favor of this legislation that said they were a member of this community in this industry is the only person in this state that is already set up to be able to comply with every single one of these regulations the day it starts. They have also positioned themselves to be one of the sole distributors within the state. So they're not representing or speaking for the industry, they're speaking for their own business interest. I'm here today representing every vape shop in Indiana that is a member of our group. That's at least 60 business owners, 100 stores across the state. We have 1,673 Hoosiers that are begging you, please, please do not take vaping away from them. It has saved their lives. It has saved my life. It has saved the life of my mother. I have good friends who have lost family members who wish this had been there for them. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Senator Delp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions I'd like you to respond to. First, to our prosecutor from Dearborn in Ohio County, and I'm very sympathetic to his concern. What's the industry doing right now to ensure that THC, opium, or anything that's currently illegal is not in the juice that's consumed by customers?
As an industry, in community groups online, on Facebook, within our stores, we actually ban discussing drugs and narcotics. We also ban minors too. If we see you on our websites or in our Facebook groups, we actually get rid of you right away. We ban you permanently. But we ban discussion of drugs and alcohol. So if somebody comes to my Facebook group for my business, Liberation Vape, and they start talking about how can I get a hash oil, I ban them and I let them know that's an illegal substance. That may be legal in Colorado, but I'm based in Indiana and that's illegal here.
So your vape shop, you're going to tell this committee, has no product on its shelf anywhere that has
Never.
any illegal substance in it.
And all of the organizations that are actually represented or part of Hoosier Vapors Council, none of them are vape shops and head shops combined. We are only vape shops because we want to have that separation. But nobody puts drugs in their product. They may do that in Colorado, but that's Colorado. That's not sold here.
Okay, my last question is, how do you answer this charge that product could be manufactured in less than ideal conditions in China or any other country that doesn't have the same standards and viewpoints or value system that Indiana and the United States has? How do you respond to that charge?
Well, there are two things that I would point out. There are products made right here in Indianapolis that are consumed, ingested, put into your body that do not have the same standards that are going into this. One of them is actually a brewery right down the street. Now, they are regulated, and they have an application process, but they don't have the same security and requirements that this bill has. I used to make barbecue sauces. I love barbecue sauces, and I've made some really intense barbecue sauces that had ghost peppers in them, and if you've ever had a ghost pepper, it's pretty hardcore. And I put on my label to keep it away from children because it could actually put a child in the hospital. I made that in a kitchen that I rented from a church, and it was something that you put into your body, and I was completely within the law. I was using a kitchen that is inspected by the health department, and it's just where they do their pancake breakfast, and it was bottled right there with me and my friends, and it was perfectly legal, and there are dozens of products made here right in Indianapolis that have that same standard.
Let me ask it this way. Do you have any product on your shelves right now that you have concern about the quality of the product, that it came from somewhere where it was in less than ideal conditions manufactured, or there was feces or anything like that?
most of the suppliers based in the U.S., and you want to use a U.S.-based supplier because you're getting a quality product that has a flavor impact. They all provide certificates that show the testing that has been done to determine the purity of those products and those ingredients, the raw materials. And if you're using a bad raw material, such as if you've got a nicotine that's old or that's oxidized, it may be cheaper, but it tastes bad. You as the end consumer are not going to want to have that product. So we have that in our thought process as we're actually ordering our raw ingredients. So we're using companies that produce a finer product for the raw ingredients, but then we also hold them accountable to say, we want to see your testing. We want to see your gas chromatograph mass spectrometer testing that shows the purity of this. And that's something that we've done as an industry for ourselves to say, this is something that we want to test to make sure that it's there, that our suppliers have it, so that we know that in the end, the products that we are giving to our customers are pure.
Senator Lacey?
Would you describe your business as a retail/manufacturer or
I am
a
only-
manufacturer only?
Yes.
Or a manufacturer wholesaler?
Well, I am a manufacturer wholesaler because I manufacture my product and then I wholesale it
Let
to
you retail
retailers
out.
and other stores. I don't wholesale anybody else's product, so I would consider a wholesaler or a distributor somebody who would
Okay.
carry 4 or 5 different companies that they sell to stores. I only wholesale mine.
And if you would describe you said you are a one-person manufacturer. So can you kind of describe to the committee your facility? where you
I
manufacture?
use a food grade safe facility. It is actually, for me, it is a kitchen that I rent that is a sterile kitchen. It has tiled walls, it has stainless steel counters, and then I have all of my glassware that is sanitized in a very large autoclave, which is basically something that hospitals use to sterilize equipment. And it's very large, and I can fit all my glassware for my measuring and everything like that in there. And then I bottle it in the same facility, and then I package it, and the packaging is all sealed. And then on top of that, I do a flat of bottles that is then shrink wrapped with a harder plastic.
What size containers do you
I
use?
use 15 milliliters only.
15 milliliters. And do you purchase those so that
Yes.
they are considered sterile containers
Yes.
then?
They come sealed.
Okay. And you can actually rent a kitchen to do this kind of an operation?
Yes.
Is it part of a incubator business center?
No, mine isn't, no. But there are places that are.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Breaux?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want you to know that as a Democrat in Indiana, sometimes I can truly empathize with, sort of being overlooked in the conversation. But if you, having said that, are there things that you would bring to the discussion? Are there ideas that you would like to see included that are not? And if so, what are they?
There's actually a national organization, AMUSA, that actually sets a group of standards for e-juice manufacturers. They have an application process, they have on-site checking, things like that, and a lot of those of us in the industry kind of rely on some of their guidelines for how we should, best practices. And I would like to see a conversation about standards in the state of Indiana, child-proof caps, age bans, and I could tell you it's kind of moot to even think about. I mean, please do, but every retailer in the state of Indiana bans sales to minors. They're very hardcore about that. But there does need to be, if it needs to be written down on paper, please write it down on paper and let's make it enforceable. The safety seal, the tamper seal,
See, all that's in here. So all
right,
that is in
but
the bill.
there's other things that we could talk about, such as selling online. There are various things we could talk about, but the big thing is no one who was within the industry came and talked to the industry.
I understand
And
that. And
we
that's
would rather
probably-
sit down and explain why a $5,000 application process for me is horrible, why a security detail with a Homeland Security rated key and locking system and having an engineer that's, you know, rated and classified. And why do I need that? You know, let's have a conversation about
Well,
that.
I think Senator Yoder is amenable to reconsidering the $5,000 fee. I think he
It's
did-
not just the application process or the application. It's everything else. It's that these are the products that we already have will be pulled, even though they meet a standard. Even, you know, this bill right now is not something that we can really negotiate with. What we need is
I know what you're saying.
let's kill this bill today. Let's vote no on this today, or table it and put it in a summer session, and let's have a conversation. Let's work as an industry with the legislature, and I can tell you that we are ready to come and sit down and have that conversation about creating those standards together.
Okay, my last question is, when you say that it would limit only to manufacturers in Indiana, and I presume it's because the language that says you have to have a permit.
Yes.
Which is what limits it. Would that not then benefit your business, for example, as getting rid of all the other competition and allow you as an Indiana manufacturer to
Well, that's
really
under
thrive?
that's with two understandings. That's the understanding that, one, I probably will not be staying in Indiana if this legislation passes. Neither will most people. And two, if I did miraculously come up with the massive amount of money that it's going to require for me to buy and retrofit and redesign a facility and then hire a security detail and manage to do all of those things, and the batch coding and the bar coding on the tiny bottle, which is really expensive to print those. By the way, I do small batches, so it's going to be incredibly expensive to batch number those. If I manage to do all of that, yes, it would be incredibly good for my business, but I believe in competition. I use my own product because it's cheaper, because it's mine, and it's, you know, the best. But I also use other e-liquids from other merchants. We are a community. We support each other. It's not uncommon for somebody to run out of something at one store, you know, batteries or something like that, and for another store to spot them until they get their wholesale delivery. We're a community. I don't want to be the only e-juice manufacturer in Indiana. My bank account would love me to be the only one, but personally I want people competing with me because it keeps me innovating. It keeps me creating new flavors. It keeps me active in the community, and that's what I want as a business.
Great, thank you.
Senator Houchin.
Thank you. I have several questions, so if you could be brief, I would appreciate it. In the bill, you said you're already doing a lot of the things that the bill requires in terms of child safety and labeling. But what is it in the bill that you could not comply with? What are the issues? You say that you're already doing several of these things, so we don't need any
Right.
regulation. So that's one of my questions. Before you get to that, I would say that another thing you said is that nobody sells and puts drugs in their product. Now, maybe you don't, and the 100 other folks here that have shops don't do that. But I just feel like that's a very strong statement to say that nobody does it when we have 6 million people in Indiana, and maybe there are other shops out there that we don't know of that could be. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. And
Can I
when
address
mentioned
that before we
to
move on to a different question?
Scotty, so if you could just focus
Very briefly.
on what is it in the bill that you can't comply with
Right.
currently?
Yeah. The batch labeling, I do small batches. That would be prohibitively expensive. The facility requirements that are mandated. The security force that's registered by the state of Indiana. Essentially, every portion of this bill, other than the labeling, bottling, the capping, the childproof, and the seal, every other aspect of it is something that would be prohibitive to me. Because even on the retail side, it does remove product. This does destroy my inventory. I can't just take the bottles that I have now, pour them into a beaker, and then rebottle them. They have to be destroyed. And as somebody who just spent, you know, a life savings putting money into that inventory, is the state of Indiana going to buy that from me?
You also, the legislation, if I'm correct, you do have a year to sell your inventory according to the legislation. So it's not that it necessarily will be pulled immediately. You would have a year to sell your inventory.
Right.
Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
I believe only the actually, as he's shaking his head, my understanding is that only retailers would have 1 year to move the inventory that they have while they're applying for a tobacco license. Anyone under this must immediately stop manufacturing e-juice in the state of Indiana.
Maybe that will be a question in closing for Senator Yoder and the language. Okay, thank you. And then one other thing, does the health department inspect the kitchen that you operate out
Yes.
of? They do. How
Yes.
often do they do those inspections?
I honestly couldn't tell you. That's the person who has the kitchen. I don't know.
How long have you been in operation?
About 2 months.
2
I
months.
just started my business
Okay,
and
2
had,
months. Okay.
the state of Indiana come in and tell me, oh, thank you for investing all of your life savings. We're going to put you out of business now. The question that you asked a moment ago about, is it fair for me to say that nobody does this, nobody
That
puts
it's fair, but
drugs?
is that
Okay, is that a
make
good
the-
statement?
to
I
make
will stand by that
broad
statement
statement.
because it's a business. 6 million people in Indiana are not going to be starting e-juice companies in Indiana and registering with the Secretary of State. They're not going to be opening up bank accounts, linked to an EI, a federal employer identification number, and operating as a business. There is absolutely nothing in this bill whatsoever that prevents somebody who wants to deal drugs from dealing drugs. What this does do is penalize the businesses that are providing safe quality products and regulating them out of existence. And being a small town Hoosier conservative boy, I'm a little upset that my home state of Indiana wants to regulate small businesses out of existence.
So you said that you've been in operation for 2 months?
Yes.
And that you have been inspected by the health department?
I believe the facility has, yes.
Okay. So, and you don't know how often?
No,
a health
it's however
department would come and
often they
inspect
normally
your kitchen?
inspect kitchens and restaurants.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? One thing you mentioned, you do small batches, and you have a community. Through the economies of scale, has there been any discussion when you've had your kind of online chats with one another about forming a cooperative where you can make your economies of scale work, and then it would make it available for labeling your batches because it would be in one or two central locations to avoid your shipping costs being too extreme? I'm very partial to small business. I admire your willingness to go out there and brave the marketplace, but I'm always very conscious of economies of scale too.
Right.
And anything that the small businessman can do to help himself or their group that's dealing in the same product to form a cooperative, and many companies have cooperatives.
You're
for
right.
the very reason I mentioned. Just a suggestion. I don't know whether the group has ever thought of that, but I think through the economies of scale, you'd see your profit margins much different, and it might allow then some of this compliance, because in your testimony, I've not heard you say you're not against the regulation. It's really coming down to how this is encroaching on your margins and your ability to financially survive. And so I'm appreciative of that. But I was just curious. I thought I saw you shake your head yes, that they have talked about some kind of a cooperative.
We've talked about it in the sense that this bill would ban that from happening. That actually, it says that we have to own the process and own the storage, and it can only be our own. So we would not be able to do something like, let's say, go in on, we together rent a facility and then, buy large volumes of raw materials. We would not be able to even consider that under this legislation.
Well, under the legislation, you could form a cooperative under a separate name, and then individual companies, your own, could buy from that cooperative.
And
That's
then
the
we
way
would
a
pay
cooperative
additional
works.
tax on that.
Pardon me?
And then I would have to pay additional tax on that, and then I wouldn't own the process of manufacturing.
And it depends on how you all set it up, but I'm just throwing out an idea.
For simplicity, as a small business owner, I would rather not have the state tell me that that the only way I'm going to be able to afford my business is if I can combine it with other people and merge. That's not the Hoosier way. The Hoosier way is go out there, pull yourself up work in your community, bust your butt, and work hard, and we're going to be
Very
there.
familiar with it.
So I know, and so let's keep that spirit alive by killing this bill and coming back and sitting together as a community, a group of businesses, and as a legislature, and talk about these standards over the summer.
Thanks for being here, Evan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman Buck and members. I appreciate your patience in listening to a lot of different folks talk about what I'm sure is a new issue for most of you. My name is Brian Foydick. I work for Enjoy Incorporated. We manufacture electronic cigarettes. We're based in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we do not make tobacco cigarettes. We do not make smokeless tobacco. We don't make any tobacco products or any products with any tobacco in them. And our corporate mission and goal is to obsolete smoking and the disease and death that accompanies it, not by legislating, but by creating products in the marketplace that appeal to adult smokers and helping them switch to something less harmful than combustible tobacco. There's a couple reasons why I'm here. I can't say that I strongly oppose this legislation. I do not take issue with the motives or goals of the author and the proponents that are here today, and many of these are faces that I've worked with for years. I used to handle Indiana from 1996 to 2009. I was regularly here working on these issues, and we're a few familiar faces back there. We're all a little grayer and maybe a little heavier, but I'm on the opposite side of them. I don't question the ideas about wanting to deal with youth access to products. Now, every one of the folks from the vape community here, everyone in the vapor community supports legislation to ban sales of these products to minors. Indiana has enacted that. It's come clear that maybe there's some sort of loophole with e-liquid and it applying to the youth ban applying in that case, and I would say that's a very simple fix. You don't need a comprehensive, far-reaching piece of legislation with a myriad of impacts to address that problem. So this legislation is not a proper response to that challenge if it exists. The issue of child-resistant packaging and ensuring that kids cannot access products. There is a lot of discussion about that around the country, and there are states that are pursuing that type of legislation. The industry is generally supportive of it. We are supportive of it. Our concerns with that are always, let's make sure all states do it the right way. There are specific definitions at the federal level of what child-resistant means, but we already comply with all those. And we'd like to see if a state is going to move in that direction. We just want to work closely and cooperatively to make sure that language mirrors the definitions and responds to changes at the federal level to deal with child resistance. So I would say if you want to deal with that issue, it's very simple to deal with that issue. Many states are considering it, contemplating it now. The last emphasis I've heard today about a rationale for this bill is concern about illicit drug use with different types of products. A very valid concern. I think all of us share that concern, and I think it's safe to say that there is not one thing in this bill that will reduce or effectively respond to that problem with which we're all concerned and we're dealing with. This bill doesn't really have anything to do with that. It is illegal, now we make cig-alike products, some of our products. This is a cig-alike product. It's very small. It looks like a cigarette. It was designed to feel like a cigarette, taste like a cigarette, look like a cigarette, so that people like me who smoked for 28 years can transition to something that's familiar and not scary to them. So we make these products and sell them throughout the United States at convenience stores and everywhere else, and these are exempt from this bill. So that's, you know, for us, wow, that's well and good, but it's still a horrible bill, and I would question why are these exempt? Are these somehow tamper-proof? Is a Views from R.J. Reynolds or a Mark 10 from Altria, the big tobacco companies, or a Blue from Lorillard, versus all the products sold by these folks that are lining the halls, that are Indiana businesses that are just trying to help people transition away from smoking. I don't see how exempting them does anything to promote any of the goals of the bill. And I go back to Milton Friedman and something I thought insightful that he said. He said one of the great mistakes is to judge policies and programs by their intentions rather than their results. I hear a lot of wonderful talk about intentions and don't see a lot in the bill that really is either necessary to deal with those issues or even responds to them at all. I would point out that there is no legislation like this that has been introduced or passed anywhere else in the United States. When I first saw this bill, I mean, we just heard about it being scheduled, I guess, on Monday or Tuesday. And it's nice that so many people could turn out in such short notice in regard to the bill. But when you read it, it looks like something radical and extreme that maybe California or Massachusetts might do. But no, California and Massachusetts are not going this far. This is well beyond the radicalness of California and Massachusetts. I'll give you an example. Like I mentioned our cig-alike product that we sell in...
If you could,
yes, sir.
Try to be brief. I've given you 5 minutes here, and I've candidly been way too generous with too many. We're approaching 3 hours, and we've got to go to the floor at some point.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I will conclude by giving an example of one of the unintended consequences of this bill. People have testified, or one person, that I think this bill would effectively shut down the e-liquid business in Indiana. It would allow the cig-alike business to continue. This is our product that we sell in convenience stores. It is a bottled liquid. It is manufactured in a pharmaceutical-like facility. We do extensive testing. We have packaging that is tamper-resistant. It's got tamper-resistant coating. It has child-resistant caps. It has listing of ingredients. We do extensive testing. We get our nicotine from Switzerland, from the same people that put nicotine in Nicorette gum and the patch. This would be illegal to be sold in Indiana if this passes. We don't own it. We contract with the pharmaceutical type company to produce it, but we don't own it. We'd have to buy a plant. We'd have to build a plant. So we could sell in 49 states, but we couldn't sell in Indiana. I think the intentions behind the bill are great. I would love to work with all of you to figure out how the impacts apply to everybody and be responsible about it. I would love to spend my summer in Indiana. I love Indianapolis. Sorry for going over my time. Thank you.
Any questions, committee?
Sir, just one.
Yes, Senator Houghton.
I appreciate the safety of your product, certainly, and thank you for bringing that here and for your testimony. Certainly, I support trying to help people quit smoking. My father-in-law he vapes, so it's also personal to me, but I have young children, so that's a concern for me as well. These products over here that were brought in as samples, those do not have labels that show the ingredients that are in them. I'm not sure if they have child safety caps on them, but those, I assume, were purchased in a store somewhere here in Indiana, and so that's an example to me that we do have a need for some regulation, and I certainly would appreciate any conversation to move it forward to make this safe and a known quantity for everybody involved. So.
I would concur with your concern and the belief that there should be reasonable regulation so that people know that the products that are being produced are safe and clean and what they profess to be and properly labeled and nicotine level and all that. The FDA is working on this. They have issued deeming regulations. They are, the challenge is there's so many, each of these issues cuts different ways. When you want to, deal with one problem and you take an action and you don't realize that other activities occur that really cause issues. But that's one where it certainly makes sense to try to sit down and deal with it reasonably. But this bill has so much other stuff in it that has nothing to do with those concerns, like 24/7 cameras. It's bizarre. I can do a Google search of it and go, where did this come from? It's, you wonder, how do these little, it's like a Frankenstein monster pieced together by I don't know who in a basement somewhere with things that don't make any sense, like the security provisions. It's not in food, it's not in pharmaceutical. Doesn't make sense to me, but those are real problems.
Senator Lysine.
I think some of us probably have concerns about where vape is manufactured in without any cleanliness of the facility, any, that kind of thing. So obviously your company, whether it's the Cigalite product or the last thing you showed us, those are all done in proper facilities, would you say, or not?
Yes.
So then, since you're already dealing with things that are being manufactured in proper facilities, the most egregious things in this bill right now are the security cameras, the locked doors, or the locks on the doors.
I think those are just peculiar things that don't get to the issues about what's in a product, ensuring that what's in it, what's said to be in it is actually in it, and making sure it's secure. It's just, they're bizarre. I've never seen them anywhere.
What about if somebody walks into a retail manufacturing location right now and says, I really want a strawberry product, and they go in the back room? Are you okay with that?
I think those are important things to discuss and try to figure out how to properly deal with it. What I would say about this bill is this is banned in Indiana under this bill, even though we sell it all over the country. We have great litigation exposure. We want to make sure it's exactly what we say it is. But somebody could make a Ciga-like product in a dumpster or a porta potty, and they could sell it legally in Indiana. And why is a 2 milliliter exemption in there? What if you make a bigger one? There's no rhyme or reason to it unless somebody really wants something specific in there to allow certain things in and keep certain things out, is what I would suggest.
Okay, thank you.
Sir,
Senator Bro.
tell me again why you could sell it in 49 other states but not in Indiana when it looks like it meets all of the requirements that the bill indicates.
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the requirements in the bill is that you own the facility in which it's manufactured. We contract with a producer to produce it for us and sell it, which is true with a lot of these businesses. You have to be licensed. There's a lot of just questions about when you create a license and other requirements, what the impacts are going to be, and I would just like more thought and consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the committee? Thank you for attending.
Chairman.
Joyce, I saw her hand. That's about all I could say at this point.
Hello, I'm Joyce Morrill. I'm a constituent of Senator Lysine. I work at a little shop in Rush County. Our county is about 17,000 people. The majority of the customers I see every day are 30 and up. I probably see 3 to 4 people. It's a small community. 3 to 4 people that quit smoking because of vaporizers. I myself am one. What's been interesting to me today, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, is that I've not heard any coughing all day long. So all of these former smokers don't cough anymore because of vaping. I have a favorite customer. Her name is Nancy. She's 74 years old, and her doctor sent her to our shop. A lot of people are having to go into surgery, and their surgeons do not want to perform surgeries on smokers. So they are encouraging them to vape, and they've been successful. In the manufacturing, a lot of good points have been made. I do think that there is some standard and regulation that needs done. I've never seen nor heard of any reputable vape shop making liquid in a bathtub or ketchup bottles. I could see the tip could be useful, but no. Our shop is very small. It employs 2 people. A $5,000 licensing fee would close us immediately. Security cameras and locks. We have pretty efficient locks right now. Nobody's broken in. We're in business for a year now. It just seems so much much silliness in this bill. I've heard a lot of fear tactics, I think, today. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. I answer 101 questions on a daily basis.
Joyce, anybody in committee? Senator Lysine?
In Rushville. Yeah, on 2nd Street. Yes, yes, we are. You mentioned strawberries. Using clean syringes, sanitary syringes, you get your flavoring. It's much like a snow cone, I guess you could say, except for cleaner even, because we, you know, when, I don't know, if working at a fair booth maybe, I would maybe use a ketchup bottle for a liquid flavoring, whereas I use a sterile syringe for food flavoring in this product. If you wanted extra flavoring, it would just cost you a little more. And it would depend on the size of the bottle that you're purchasing as to the percentage of how much flavoring you would get.
Is there a recipe for this stuff?
For instance, I would do 2 mils of flavoring to a 15 ml bottle of liquid. And the liquid comes prepackaged to us. We are not mixing the nicotine liquid itself in the shop. So that comes, you know, already FDA approved, sealed packaging to our shop.
So how did you decide to get in the business? Just
I needed a part-time job. I don't own the shop. I just
Okay.
work at the shop.
You work at the shop.
But I've smoked for 30 years, and I've tried all kinds of nicotine patches, drugs, prescription drugs. Let me clarify that. Sorry. Drugs are drugs, right? And none of it worked, but this has worked, and it's worked fabulous. And sometimes there is odor in vaping. I think I want to clarify that. Some flavors you can actually smell. Belgian cocoa is my favorite. People can smell it. Banana, you can smell it. Strawberry, not so much.
And so you actually are now using the vape instead of smoking yourself?
Yes, haven't had a cigarette for years.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Bro?
It seems
Keep
to me
track
that
of the clock.
flavors, excuse me? I'm sorry? Okay, yeah, no. It seems to me that the flavors are really geared towards children. Would you agree?
No, I like strawberry just as much today as I did when I was 10. I don't
so
find
you don't think that
is-
has the way that these are you know, the skull caps and all that kind of stuff, that it tends to be very attractive to folks under age 18?
I can see why you would ask the question, but I've never sold to any child 5 years old, 10 years old. If somebody looks under 18, I ask for their ID. If they're under 18, they leave the store. We kick them out. Just because we become adults doesn't mean we quit liking flavors. I started off with a tobacco flavor, thinking I could psych myself out, and it worked easier. But then after a while, you get tired of that, and you move on to a lower nicotine level and maybe change your flavor.
Any other questions? Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Gregory Conley, I believe.
Good afternoon, Chairman Buck and members of the Commerce and Technology Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present testimony on the important public health and small business topic of vapor products and electronic cigarettes. My name is Gregory Conley. I am here today on behalf of the American Vaping Association, a nonprofit organization that advocates for small and medium-sized businesses in the vapor product market. I have presented written testimony. I've also presented written testimony from the largest U.S. trade group for electronic cigarettes in the United States, the Smoke-Free Alternatives Trade Association. They stand with their 339 members across the United States in deep concern and opposition to this bill. While we appreciate the sponsor's attention to our issue, we're extremely concerned about the effect that SB539 will have on smokers and vapors in Indiana, as well as businesses located both in Indiana and across the United States. This bill is a wolf in sheep's clothing. In short, we ask you to vote no on SB 539 because its enactment would, 1, decimate small businesses here in Indiana, 2, unconstitutionally prevent out-of-state e-liquid manufacturers from selling into the Indiana market, and 3, have the unintended consequence of actually benefiting and protecting cigarette markets. As Brian Foytick from Enjoy noted, no other state has considered or enacted any legislation close to the overbearing regulations included in this bill. Indeed, in Indiana, if you want to manufacture tobacco products, it is as simple as filling out a form saying, I am not delinquent in taxes, I agree to sell my cigarettes in only packs of 20, and that is it. Perhaps a $100 fee. I don't even know if there's a fee attached to it. Under this bill, as Brian Foytick pointed out-of-state manufacturers of e-liquid would be unconstitutionally prevented from selling products into the Indiana market unless they apply for and receive the non-refundable $5,000 license to manufacture e-liquid products and consent to inspections of their out-of-state facilities. Does the Indiana Alcohol and Tobacco Commission or the Department of Health have the budget to fly out and inspect manufacturers in other states? Do they have any expertise in this area? Do they have any expertise in toxicology to know what ingredients do not present an unreasonable risk to harm public health, as is in this bill? And to be clear, even if this bill is amended to allow to take out all regulations aside from, for example, child-resistant caps for out-of-state liquid manufacturers, it would still do great harm to Indiana-based businesses. The $5,000 fee, overbearing security, these would decimate businesses that are employing Indiana citizens, paying income and sales tax, voting, and occupying what might otherwise be vacant storefronts. Stores would close and customers would flock to online businesses, and those online businesses will not be paying sales taxes to Indiana, nor will the Indiana businesses be continuing to make money in this state and pay taxes as they are now. Even worse, with all due respect, Chairman Buck, the Master Settlement Agreement does not have anything to do with e-cigarette, cig-alike products. There was a master settlement agreement that focused on cigarettes, and there was a smokeless tobacco master settlement agreement that focused on smokeless tobacco. If Indiana is going to regulate manufacturing, labeling, liquid contents of nicotine-containing vapor products, then it must be uniform, and you must also apply it to the products being sold by Big Tobacco. And here's something in this bill. If you are a felon or have been convicted of any controlled dangerous substance offense, you would not be able to be manufacturers. Who is a felon in the tobacco industry? Altria, R.J. Reynolds, and Lorillard all are convicted felons of racketeering, so they would not be allowed to sell products into Indiana under this bill if they were included. I also want to make clear that the skull cap that was listed on one of those products, that is a tea extract that is organic, and so companies, that is a flavoring. It is called skull cap because it comes from a tea product called skull cap. Despite great strides this country has made in reducing smoking, there are still over 1 million Indiana smokers. So I ask, why is this committee focusing on over-regulating e-liquid products when the state has a cigarette tax of less than $1, does not regulate cigarette manufacturing? There are head shops all across this state that sell bongs and pipes that are intended to be used with these products. This bill does nothing to combat drugs. It is already illegal to sell e-liquid that has drugs in it. And the FDA is taking a serious approach. 2 years ago, they announced, or 2 years ago from the date that they announced their regulations, they said, we're looking at this issue. They studied it closely. They brought in stakeholders and had conversations with them, something that has not been done here. So in conclusion, the AVA urges you to vote no, because the only industry that will be helped by this bill will be big tobacco, and I question why. I heard a lobbyist in the room earlier say Reynolds supports this bill. Where is Reynolds' lobbyist to defend this and to defend their FDA comment where they asked the FDA to just ban all open vapor products, all e-liquid products? So please, if you've been lobbied on this issue by Reynolds or wholesalers who receive money from Reynolds, it is questionable what their motives are in supporting this bill. It appears to just completely destroy this industry, move state to state doing this. So in conclusion, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I urge you to please push this to the summer session, work with us, ban sales to minors, require child-resistant caps, as 3 states have already done, and many states already are. 40 states already ban e-liquid to minors. Thank you very much, and again, please, any questions you have, I've been studying this bill for several weeks.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Senator Yoder, to close.
I cannot compete with the decibel of that, but I'm going to do my best to at least say a few things, and I'm going to keep it very brief because we're all hungry and I think we all want to get out of here. But we've heard a lot of information today. What I think is very clear is that this bill is an important bill. We've heard the AG's office come in here and say that this does not go far enough. We've heard plenty of other individuals who are involved in this business say it goes way too far. That tells me we're somewhere in the middle, which is probably where we need to be. I'm very committed to continue working on this bill. I don't think it's in the final form that it needs to be in. I think we need to hear some of these concerns and we need to take them into account. You know, things like skull cap that we heard about, you know, I just pulled that up. It is an herb of some form, and it says it should be used with caution because in overdose form it causes confusion, stupor, twitching. It also has been linked to liver damage. How many people know that when they're taking this stuff? You know, this is the kind of stuff that we're trying to prevent. All we're asking is for some simple regulation. I heard testimony after testimony that says, we're already doing this. This is not needed because we do it. Well, then what's the big deal? Let's put this in the code and make sure that there's no bad actors in this field. Let's continue working together on this. This is a long process to get to where it needs to be. We're at the very start of this, and I'm committed to making this a bill that protects all Hoosiers who want to participate in this and makes it a product that is safe for everybody. I want to protect small business, but I also want to protect the consumers that use this product, and I want to protect kids from getting to it. So with that, Mr. Chairman, you have my word that I'll continue to work on this bill and continue to craft it into a bill that is at least acceptable to most. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion from the committee? Senator Lysing?
Right. Okay. I don't think it does actually, but I'm happy to discuss that with you later.
Okay, and then changing that license fee, I was given a note that Indiana tobacco wholesale license costs $500 and are regulated by revenue, not by the Alcohol Tobacco Commission. Now, I don't know if that's accurate, but I think it's something that you certainly need to look at.
I'm more than happy to work on the fees. I don't care about that.
I think 5,000 sounds
frankly.
egregious, and it certainly would put people here probably out of business.
Don't disagree.
And then the other thing that I've heard repeatedly are about the locks and I'm not an authority on locks, but Senator Head is, and he was,
Oh.
he was enlightening me a little bit on the lock stuff. And then I don't know about the security cameras, if that's, I mean, how.
That's something we can discuss. It's, you know,
I really think those, I heard those things repeatedly over and over from the people here, so.
yeah,
And I mean, I think if we're going to do this, it needs to be produced in a clean environment.
I would
And
think that's probably a good start, personally.
Thank you.
Senator Bro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you help me understand, Senator Yoder, the out-of-state effect this would have on those manufacturers that, like the previous, or one of the previous speakers said, that they have a product that is manufactured in a clean facility, it meets all the cap requirements, and they can sell in 49 states but not Indiana because they don't own the facility. Can you explain that a little more
I
to me?
need to do a little more work on that. I'm happy to sit down with you to get, so that I have true answers for you. I don't want to speak out of turn. I want to be factual on that. I think that it's a bit overstated, but I want to be sure before I answer that. I'm going to be researching that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Senator Head?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one issue I didn't ask about that I should have brought up, and that was brought up a little bit in testimony that concerns me the greatest, is that anything that regulates interstate commerce is subject to being overturned in a lawsuit as a violation of our Commerce Clause. That I would hope that we could postpone voting on the bill until we get research on that and understand if this bill falls under that or not. Secondly, I also say, Senator Yoder, I've known you for many years, and when you say you're willing to work with people and address these issues, I know that you are. There are a lot of things that were brought up in this bill today that I don't think proponents of the bill anticipated or had thought through or realized. I guess I'm not trying to say anyone's acting in bad faith, but there were a lot of issues brought up that I think just it hadn't occurred to people before, and I appreciate your efforts to be willing to try to meet in the middle and to try to work with people to address those, and Senator Lysing listed several. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you. What's the committee's pleasure?
Move to pass.
It's been moved and seconded. Call the roll. As amended, thank you.
Explain my vote, please. You know, this has been a very interesting discussion, and I've vacillated back and forth on my position. But I think that there are some concerns that I have about this bill. I think the intent the author has is very admirable, and I believe that there do need to be some regulations on this. I just think that this bill may go a little bit too far, and that we may not have thoroughly vetted just some of the consequences of the language in this bill and so on. I believe and trust that you are willing to work on this bill, so I will reserve the right to change my vote on the floor, but as of now, I'm going to vote nay in the hopes that we can get some of these things clarified.
Senator Yoder, I appreciate you bringing this. I do have some concerns, as have been shared by others, on the things that were mentioned by Senator Lysing, but I do believe that you will work on those issues to make improvements and work with all the stakeholders to try to get a good product here that does focus on public safety and protecting children from accessing these products. I do think that's important and relevant, and I'll be voting yes with the hope that you'll continue to work on this. Thank you.
Explain my vote. Senator, I know that you're going to work with us to address those issues that I have concern on second reading, and if not on third reading, I won't be supporting this bill. But today, I think it's important that we keep this issue alive, because there are so many of us that probably had no idea that this product was even being manufactured behind storefronts. So I vote yes today.
I'm going to explain my vote to you. This bill right now, it's got so much work that needs to be done on, and in this form, and I know that there is a, I'm sure that Senator Yoder is going to modify this thing or agreeable to everybody, but right now, I will vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wanted to explain why I've not held the bill. Since we have split this committee between Commerce and Utilities, we don't have a chance to come back here next week and discuss this bill. On second reading, this bill can be heard at a much later date, but the earliest I could hear this bill and then second reading would be in 2 weeks. I've always respected Senator Yoder's commitment on many issues he carries that are controversial, that he will always work with whomever asked to. So I appreciate the attention that was given today. We'll look forward to working on the bill. Thanks, Senator Yoder. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
We're
Yes, that's correct. It was 6 in favor, 4 opposed. The bill will go on to being voted on, but they're talking about amending it before that. So I like they said, they may see it in 2 weeks again. As it stands right now, it passes to go on to the state floor to get voted on. Guys, thanks for popping in and watching, and we'll talk at you later. Tags up.